Imagine waking up on a Tuesday morning. You didn't go to work. You didn't answer emails. You didn't do anything, really. You made yourself some coffee, sat by the window, and watched the rain. And while you were doing absolutely nothing, someone, somewhere, put money into your account. Not a lot. Maybe just a few dollars. But you didn't earn it by selling your time. You didn't trade 8 hours of your life for it. It just appeared. Now here's the question nobody really asks out loud. Why does that feeling of earning even a small amount of money passively feel so fundamentally different from earning $1,000 at work? Because mathematically, a dollar is a dollar. Whether you sweat for it or sleep for it, it buys the same cup of coffee. But psychologically, it is an entirely different object. And understanding why it feels different, that's the key to understanding why some people build wealth quietly, almost invisibly, while others stay stuck on the same financial treadmill for decades. Let's start with how most of us were taught to think about money. From the time you were old enough to understand anything about the world, the message was always the same. Study hard. Get a good job. Work hard at that job. Get paid. Spend some. Save some. Repeat until you're 65. That's the model. And it's not wrong, exactly. Work is real. Income is real. But there's a flaw buried deep inside this model that almost nobody talks about. The flaw is this. In that system, your income has a ceiling. And that ceiling is your time. You only have 24 hours in a day. Even if you're productive for 10 of them, you can only be paid for so many. Your income is always capped by how many hours you can sell. And here's the uncomfortable part. The moment you stop selling hours, the income stops too. This is what economists call active income. You're active, money comes in. You stop being active, money stops. It's a direct trade. Time for money. Life for money. Most people spend their entire working lives inside this trade without ever stopping to question it. Not because they're unaware, but because the trade feels normal, expected, safe. And then something happens that breaks the whole model. Let's say you've been putting a small amount of money every month into an index fund. Maybe $50, maybe $100. Nothing dramatic. You're not rich. You're not a finance expert. You just read somewhere that it was a good idea, so you set up an automatic transfer and mostly forgot about it. Then one day, about 8 months in, you check your account and you notice something. A small number. Maybe $12, maybe $20. It's labeled dividends. You didn't do anything to get that. It wasn't a bonus. It wasn't a side hustle. It wasn't overtime. The money showed up because the companies inside your fund made profits, and they shared a tiny fraction of those profits with everyone who owned a piece of them, including you. $12, $20. It's nothing on paper, but something shifts in your brain when you see it. Here's where the psychology gets really interesting. There's a concept in behavioral economics called the source of money effect. Research has shown that people don't treat all money the same way. We mentally tag money based on where it came from. A tax refund feels like found money, so we spend it more freely. A paycheck feels earned, so we're more careful with it. An inheritance feels different from a bonus, which feels different from a gambling win. And passive income? Passive income triggers something almost primal. Because here's what your brain is actually processing when you see that $12 dividend. It's not $12. It's proof of concept. It's your brain registering, maybe for the very first time at a gut level, that the rules you were taught about money aren't the only rules. That there's another system running quietly in the background. A system where money makes money. Where time and income are no longer the same thing. That $12 is your brain's first real encounter with the idea of capital working for you, and it short-circuits something. Now let's talk about what happens as this builds, because here's where most people make a mistake. They see the $12 dividend, feel a little buzz of excitement, and then move on. They don't change anything. They treat it as a curiosity rather than a signal. What they miss is the compounding logic underneath it. Imagine you have a single apple tree. First year, it gives you 10 apples. You eat 5 and plant 5. Second year, you have 6 trees. Third year, even more. You didn't work harder. The trees did the work. Your only job was to not eat all the apples. Your investment account works on exactly the same logic. Every dollar that earns a return becomes a slightly bigger dollar. That bigger dollar earns a slightly bigger return. And so on, in a loop that quietly accelerates over time. This is compound growth. And the reason people underestimate it is that it's completely invisible at the start. In the early years, the numbers are small enough to feel meaningless, which is exactly why most people give up or lose interest before the curve even starts bending upward. But here's the thing about that first $1,000 in passive income. It almost never arrives all at once. It sneaks up on you. $12 here, 40 there. A slow, quiet drip that suddenly, one year, adds up to something you actually notice. And when you notice it, when you actually feel it cross 4 figures, something changes again. But this time, the change is bigger. Because $1,000 earned passively isn't just a financial milestone, it's a psychological one. It's the moment the abstract becomes concrete. Before this, passive income was a concept you'd read about, a thing other people did, a goal that felt vaguely real, but mostly theoretical. Now it's a number on a screen that came from nowhere you worked for. And your brain starts asking a question it has never asked before. If I can do 1,000, why not 10,000? This is what researchers call a reference point shift. Your mental model of what's possible has fundamentally changed. You've updated your internal baseline. And once a reference point shifts, it's almost impossible to shift it back. People who've hit this milestone consistently describe a change in how they think about earning. Not a dramatic overnight transformation, more like a slow reorientation. They start seeing their salary differently, not as the source of wealth, but as one source. They start looking at expenses differently, not just as things that cost money, but as things that delay the compounding. They start thinking in systems rather than transactions. Let's go a little deeper. Because there's something about passive income that quietly changes your relationship with work itself. This is not about quitting your job or escaping responsibility. It's much subtler than that. When you have money working for you, even a little, you enter every negotiation with slightly more power. You take a job because you want it, not because you desperately need the next paycheck. You're far less likely to stay in a situation that doesn't serve you out of pure financial fear. Psychologists call this kind of financial security optionality. The ability to say no, the ability to walk away, the ability to choose. And here's the irony. The people who build the most passive income are often not the people who hate work. They're the people who love having choices. They build the income stream not to escape work, but to make sure that when they do work, they're doing it on their own terms. That $1,000 you earned passively isn't just income. It's the first deposit into a freedom account that no bank officially offers. Now let's talk practically, because none of this is useful if it stays in the abstract. The first thing to understand is that passive income is not instant. Every passive income stream has an active phase. You write the article, you build the portfolio, you set up the automated system, you buy the asset. That work happens up front. The passivity comes later. And anyone telling you otherwise is selling something. The second thing to understand is that $1,000 passively earned requires some form of capital: financial capital, intellectual capital, or creative capital. If you have money saved, it can work in index funds, dividend stocks, or bonds. If you have skills, they can produce content, tools, or courses that earn over time. If you have time and patience, you can build slowly from almost nothing. The third thing, and this one matters most, is that the gap between zero passive income and any passive income is the hardest gap to cross. Not because it requires the most money, but because it requires the most belief. Most people never cross it, not because they can't, but because it feels too slow, too small, too uncertain in the early stages. But if you can stay in it long enough to earn that first 1,000, not all at once, but dripped slowly over months of quiet, patient compounding, the psychological shift that follows is its own reward. Here's the deeper idea underneath all of this. We were taught to see money as something you earn through effort. And effort is noble. There is nothing wrong with working hard for what you have. But wealth, actual, generational, durable wealth, is not built through effort alone. It's built by putting your money to work alongside your effort. By building systems that generate income even when you're not generating anything yourself. The wealthiest people in history didn't just work more. They owned things that worked for them. Factories, land, stocks, intellectual property. The income from those things didn't require more hours. It required smarter deployment of capital. And you don't need to be rich to start this. You need to be intentional. $50 a month, invested consistently over 10 years at average historical market returns, becomes something you'd genuinely be surprised by. Not because of the $50, because of the time. Time is the mechanism. Consistency is the behavior. And that first $1,000 in passive income is the proof, your own personal proof, that the mechanism is real and it's working. So let's close with this. The reason your first $1,000 in passive income feels so different from your first $1,000 paycheck isn't irrational. Your brain is picking up on something real. It's the difference between income that requires you and income that doesn't. It's the difference between a trade and a system. It's the difference between being inside the financial machine and quietly building one of your own. You don't need to earn $1 million to feel this shift. You just need to earn that first passive dollar, and then reinvest it. And then wait. Because somewhere in your future, on a Tuesday morning just like any other, while you're making coffee and watching the rain, your phone will buzz. And the money that shows up in your account won't ask anything from you. And you'll understand, maybe for the first time, that wealth isn't built in a moment of effort. It's built in years of quiet patience,